Today I want to talk to you about inner strength. Inner strength is one of the most important kinds of strength that you can develop. We talk a lot about going to the gym and developing your muscles or running and developing your lungs, but we don't talk about developing your inner strength, that fortitude that it takes to accomplish goals. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. What's up, everyone? I'm Elliott Connie, and I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. So let me tell you the day I realized that I had internal strength. And internal strength is so important because you cannot accomplish goals without it. So growing up, I loved sports, and I lived in a neighborhood where we'd play sports all around the neighborhood. We'd play sports in the backyard. We'd play pickup football and pick up basketball. We would even get as many friends as we could from the neighborhood and play baseball. I don't know if you've seen the movie Sandlot, but we'd get together in a field and play baseball. That was just my life. And then when I was 11 years old, I decided to try out for the organized team, the organized local team. And I made the team. And it was a lot of fun. That was my first year playing Little League when I was 11. And it was great. It was a ton of fun. Everything was wonderful. The team I was on really stunk, but I was pretty good. I wouldn't say the greatest, but I was pretty good. And then the season ended. And in Massachusetts, we played 20 games in the spring. But if you were really good, you played what they called the All-Star season. And the All-Star season was amazing because you got to travel all throughout New England and play other Little League teams. It was a highly sought after thing. If you were a good baseball player, you wanted to be an All-Star. So you could spend your summer A, playing baseball, and B, traveling throughout New England. And that's such an amazing thing as a kid, car rides and all the fun things you play with your friends in the back seat of cars, and you stop at McDonald's after the game and all of that stuff. And I did not make the All-Star team. It wasn't a goal for me at the time. I knew about it because people kind of talked about it, but I didn't understand the context of it. And then one day, the season was over and the All-Star team is playing. And one day I'm just walking by the field in Franklin, Massachusetts, where I lived at the time. It's called Fletcher Field. And I was walking by Fletcher Field and I saw some games happening. So just as a curious kid, I went and looked. And I saw some of the kids for the first time who had made the All-Star team. And I knew for certain, I was better than half of the kids on the 11-year. It's all divided up by age at that time. So I knew I was better than half of the kids that were on the traveling All-Star team. And I said to myself, next year, I'm going to make the All-Star team. Next year, I'm going to make that team because I want to be here. And I actually worked. And so when I turned between 11 and 12, I worked on some drills and I practiced with some friends, and we kind of got together and did the things we needed to do. And then the next year, my athletic ability and my talent to play baseball took a whole another step forward and increased a whole new level. And my team won the town championship. I won the league MVP, and I led the league in batting average and home runs and RBIs and all of these statistical things, and made the All-Star team and was able to travel and play in some tournaments during the summer. And it was the first time I realized you could set a goal, you could tap into your skills and resources and achieve the goal. And that was a massively important lesson for me as a child to realize I had some control over my life and my circumstances. I could go from being a non-all-star to being an all-star. I could go from being unrecognized to recognized as a kid. And that was huge for me. And I knew that it took something internal. I knew it took something inside of me to be able to accomplish that. And that mattered. So think about how important it is. You literally can't achieve any goal, any aim, any target without knowing that you have internal strength that you can tap into to make that happen. Because there is no such thing as hard work without internal strength. There is no such thing as progress without internal strength. There is no such thing as goal accomplishment without internal strength. And I'm sure that wasn't my first goal, but that was the first time I was aware of it's going to take some doing. And I'm going to have to do some things to make myself eligible. I'm going to have to do some things to get myself onto that traveling all-star team. And I remember when I did it. I remember when it happened and how significant it was and how much it meant to me and how amazing it was. And I know all of you had a moment in your life when you also recognized that you had internal strength, when you also recognized that you had the kind of strength that mattered, when you also recognized that you could influence the world around you. And I want you to think about what those things are and how they matter. Listen, I've been helping counselors and clients for over 15 years. I've helped hundreds of thousands of counselors. I've helped tens of thousands of clients, and I hope the lessons I've learned have made a difference for you. Please do me a favor and share this podcast on your social media or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. I will see you tomorrow. The Dalai Lama once said that a calm mind brings inner strength and self-confidence. So that's a very important part of our health. That's a very important part of our lives. It's a very important part of having good, strong mental health. And it reminds me of someone that used to be a good friend of mine. I only say used to because I haven't talked to him in a while, but someone I went to graduate school with. And this person was probably the calmest, most settled person that I ever knew, and did what I still believe is the most credible thing I ever saw anybody do. Everyone, this is Elliott Connie, and I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my life and in my work, and I want to inspire you to live your very best life. And today I want to tell you about my friend Yarib. When I was in graduate school, I had the opportunity to meet this man named Yarib, and Yarib was from the Middle East, and he was from a country that was at war at the time. Which is another reason I've probably been thinking about Yarib recently is, other parts of the world kind of enter into conflict and crazy things are happening again. But this was in the early 2000s and the Middle East was at war, and Yarib and his family escaped this war. And Yarib was probably, I'm going to say about 30 years old at the time. And when he came to America, he did not speak English. And a year later, Yarib was in graduate school with me. And it was clear to me when I was around Yarib in graduate school that English was not his first language, but he could speak the language pretty well. And, graduate school is not easy. It's a graduate school in psychotherapy program. It's a graduate school learning to become a counselor. So Yarib had to write a lot, and Yarib had to study a lot, and Yarib had to read a lot, and Yarib had to really, really work and concentrate on what he was doing. So at the time when I was getting to know Yarib, I knew that he was not a native English speaker. But about halfway through the graduate program, Yarib tells me that he's been in America for about a year. We're just kind of sitting around talking, and he tells me he's been in America for about a year. And I'm asking him, do you like it? And how's it different from your home country? And all these things. And he tells me that the hardest thing has been learning the language. And I said, so when did you start learning English? He said, when I got here about a year ago. Now, just think about this for a second. Like, within a year, he learned a brand new language, and he learned it well that he could communicate effectively in a graduate program. He could communicate efficiently and sufficiently enough that he could successfully be pursuing a graduate degree. And I asked him, how did you do that? Like, I don't think I could move to your country and a year from now be getting a graduate degree speaking a language other than English. Like, how did you do that? And Yarib said he went to a store and he bought the entire series of a TV show called I Love Lucy. And he sat and watched it over and over again until he could speak the language. And it blew me away. I asked him what motivated him, and he said, my country is so at war, my people are so struggling that I want to get a counseling degree so I can go back and help them. And his demeanor, like he was just such a calm, settled, resolved person. And it made him able to do things that I think most people would struggle to do. It made him able to do things that I think most people would not be able to do. It made him just like there was a strength about him unlike anyone I'd ever seen. When we got to the end of our program, and there were really smart people in our program, we had to take this test. We had to take this exam that literally covered everything we studied in the years leading up to this program and this test. And we sit down for this test, and man, this test was a doozy. The average in order to pass this test, you needed to get a 70. There were 9 of us who took the test, and only 3 of us got a 70. I mean, this test was hard. Yarib got the highest score in the entire program. He scored a 90 plus. I think it was a 94. And, he successfully got his degree and went back home and changed his country. But it reminded me of the importance. It reminded me of the power of just quiet inner strength. Yarib was someone that I think truly could accomplish anything. Now, I don't know him well enough to know how he got that strength. I don't know him well enough to know where that strength came from, but I know it was a part of him, and it made him capable of accomplishing great things. So if you want to accomplish great things, if you have monumental tasks in front of you, quiet your mind, quiet your soul, quiet your spirit, and use the example of Yarib and understand you could do just about anything with a quiet, resolved mind. So I want you to think about your life. If you were to quiet your mind, if you were to quiet your soul, if you were to quiet your spirit, what's the one goal you'd be able to achieve that has been hard for you while your brain is just moving so fast? And we live in this world where, there's constant feedback for our brains, social media and the 24-hour news cycle and all the crazy things. If you were to settle, calm, and relax, what is one thing that you'd be able to do with a nice, calm mind? So listen, I'm Elliott Connie, and for over 15 years, I've helped hundreds of thousands of counselors support their clients in finding solutions for their everyday lives. And I hope I've helped you a bit today too. So thanks for being here. Please do me a huge favor and share this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I will see you tomorrow. What we're talking about this week is inner strength and finding inner peace. But not just finding it, but what it looks like and how to unlock it in your life, how to unlock your potential, how to unlock your inner strength. And today I want to talk to you about 3 tips that you can do immediately to begin to tap into your inner strength and accomplish your inner peace. I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Yesterday, I did something really cool. I'm here in New York City right now at the moment as I'm recording this, and me and my team, we went to do a photo shoot at Central Park here in the city. And you guys know, in the city, Central Park, there are people from everywhere. There are tourists walking around just enjoying the city. You can get amazing views of the city from Central Park. So there's tourists everywhere. There are locals exercising. There are horse carriages. There are kids playing. Everything. And then as I'm walking around this park, kind of between sets and, my camera person scouting the next location, I see this woman, and she is sitting in what you would traditionally think of as a yoga pose. She's sitting with her arms crossed, her each hand out to one side, her eyes closed, and she's just sitting completely still underneath a tree. And I found myself just kind of staring at her, watching her sit in that pose for, I don't know, however many minutes. And I recognized what I was doing was admiring her beauty. Now, I don't mean beauty external beauty. I don't mean beauty wow, she's beautiful. I don't mean beauty attraction, I want to date that person, whatever. I mean the beauty of watching someone turn inward and find their inner peace. Literally in the most hectic city on the globe, in one of the most hectic spots of that city you could be in, this woman, and I don't know, she's probably in her 20s, maybe early 30s, something like that. She's sitting in total stillness and quiet amongst a sea of chaos. And I found myself admiring that and admiring the beauty of that moment and the beauty of that skill. I found myself thinking about how amazing it is that amongst all of the circumstances that was going on around her, she was sitting completely still. She was sitting in her own space. She was turning inward to find her strength and her comfort and find her inner peace. I think the lesson we have to learn is the first tip is to know no matter what is going on around you, you can always turn inward to tap into your inner peace and your inner strength. I think the biggest mistake we make is we think that the things that drive us, like the things that make us happy, the things that make us inspired, the things that make us be who we are and do what we do are external. But that's not true. Happiness lives inside of you. Strength lives inside of you. Peace lives inside of you. And it's accessible to the people that turn inward and tap into it, regardless of the circumstances going on around you. In fact, I can make the argument that even more so in those circumstances around you. So the first tip is to recognize that that stuff is in you. The second thing, I want you to create at least one moment every day, literally one moment every day where you sit still and turn inward, where you quiet the noise, where you turn off your cell phone, turn off the television, turn off everything and just quiet yourself literally for 60 seconds. You know, a big mistake that people make is we think in order to do this kind of work, I need to have hours and hours available to me in the day. And most of us don't have that. But the simple truth is there's a cascading effect. If you do 60 seconds a day, you'll start experiencing a tremendous transformation in your life. And the third thing I want you to do is once you start doing these things, I want you to notice the impact. A really smart person once said, a change is only a change if it is noticed. So once you start doing these things and spending these 60 seconds and getting to know yourself and turning inward and finding your strength, finding your confidence, finding your peace, I want you to walk through your life noticing the impact and noticing the difference that it is making for you. And I promise if you do these things, you start implementing these things in your life right away, there will be an immediate and a drastic impact in how you experience yourself and how you live your life. So please, I want you to think about this young woman that I saw in Central Park yesterday. And I want you to think about how you can become just a bit like this person and turn inward, find your peace, sit still amongst the chaos, quiet the noise, and become your very, very best self. This is Elliott Connie, and I want to thank you so much for being here. If you wouldn't mind doing me a huge favor and share this podcast on your social media platforms with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite platform is to listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. You know that movie theme where like the main character is like in the beginning of the movie, at the beginning of the story arc, the main character is someone who struggles to do the right thing and maybe they're undisciplined or they're not making great choices or whatever the case is. But then throughout the movie, they find like the inner strength to do what is right. They find the inner strength to make right choices and become the hero. It's a very, very common theme. You find it everywhere. And in today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into what it is like to find your inner strength, to be able to do what is right and live the kind of life that you can be proud of. Welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Now, recently, I saw a movie that belongs to the Marvel franchise that is like my favorite movie series ever. Like I love all the Marvel movies. And I watched the movie called Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, if you haven't seen it already, I'm going to try to do a good job not spoiling the movie. But spoiler alert, I may be talking about some details within the movie. But in the beginning of the movie, Spider-Man had what I will describe as some selfish aims, like things he was trying to do that would benefit just himself. And the movie is about him going about this journey and he's trying to accomplish these things that would be about himself, and he completely makes a mess. You know, Spider-Man has this guilt because a couple of his friends didn't get into the college of their choice, and it was because they were associated with him, and he wanted to fix that mistake because he felt so guilty and he felt so upset and he felt so sad about it. So he literally risks the universe trying to resolve that issue. And as I was watching this, I thought, like, this is someone who lacks the inner strength to deal with something difficult, like to deal with guilt and to deal with having responsibility and struggling to like be the person he could be, even though he had to deal with this difficult thing. And a lot of us we struggle to deal with hard things. Like we struggle to deal with being embarrassed or a mistake that we made or carrying guilt or whatever. We struggle with it and we work really hard to resolve it instead of realizing it's not fair to risk other people's lives or happiness, or it's not fair to risk other people's experiences just because I don't have the strength to carry this issue. And that's exactly what the Spider-Man No Way Home is about. And the movie goes on, all these crazy adventure things happen and all this stuff happens to where he has to make an even bigger choice to save the universe. Like he has to face an even bigger challenge and ends up living with more pain because he had to save the universe. And everybody else got saved and everybody else is okay and everybody else goes on. But Spider-Man has to live with even more struggle and difficulty. And I watched it and I just thought, man, like how true this is for life. Like oftentimes we try to solve a small problem and we end up making it a bigger problem, where what we really needed to do is from the onset realize life is not perfect. Sometimes I have to move forward and carry a scar with me. Like sometimes I have to move forward and struggle a little bit in one way. And that stops me from struggle a lot of bit in a whole lot of other ways. Like when you watch this movie, you'll see, had he just decided, this little bit of guilt is far better than what he ended up having to do. You'll see what I'm saying. Like it was so much worse because of the path he went. And it's really important that we recognize it's okay not to be perfect. Inner strength is accepting your flaws. It is okay not to be perfect and live perfectly. It's really, really okay. You can do it. You are strong enough. Because when you try to solve those problems to kind of make yourself perfect, you often make the situation much, much worse. This was the case in the movie Spider-Man No Way Home, and it is also the case in many, many of our lives. So think about who your favorite character is in a movie and how they go about developing their inner strength and in developing their inner core and becoming who they need to be. And what can you do to make sure you are strong enough to accept your flaws? And that doesn't mean you have to work on them. It doesn't mean you don't have to work on them. But it also means you don't have to erase them. You can really be yourself, and it is okay. Once again, I'm Elliott Connie, and I've been helping counselors and therapists for over 15 years help their clients thrive, and I've been working with my own clients as well. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. If you wouldn't mind, please share this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And please don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcast platform is. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I know it can seem hard to move one foot in front of the other at times, but I want to remind you that you have the inner strength to carry forward. And I know that because I had to find my inner strength to carry forward, even if it's just one tiny step at a time. Welcome back to the Aha Moments. I'm your host, Elliott Connie. I want to remind everyone listening that they are capable. I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking, like the super successful people are actually the examples of strength and inner strength. Like we look at the Michael Jordans and the Tom Bradys, or we look at like business people, right? Like Mark Cuban, Jeff Bezos, whatever. Those are the examples of inner strength. But I think if you look at life, if you look at my life, for example, don't look at the successes as evidence of my inner strength. Look for the hard times, and I found the opportunity. I found it within myself to figure out how to take one step in front of the other. Because I remember being so depressed. The time I'm thinking about is in college. I had just gotten through a childhood of significant abuse and significant pain and significant struggle. And now I'm in college, and I was excited because I thought this would be the first time where I don't live in the same home with my dad or live near my dad. I'm on a college campus and I'm free, or at least I thought I was free. But then I realized that you can be abusive and you can trigger abuse over the phone. Or back then I'd have a beeper, and I can remember like living my life, got my beeper, like clipped to my pocket the way we used to do. And it would be my dad's phone number. And I would have this like extraordinarily high level of anxiety and stress. And I just realizing that I wasn't free and I still had to deal with that. That was probably the lowest moment of my life. And I can remember feeling like waking up every morning and just beginning my morning routine was like the hardest thing I could do and took every bit of my energy. Like just waking up every morning and walking over to the sink and brushing my teeth, washing my face. I mean, even thinking about it now, like I can remember when that was such a monumental task that it was a real challenge. I remember like the thought of getting dressed and facing the day was so awful. And some days I couldn't even do it. Some days I would, start the process of washing my face, brushing my teeth, and I would climb into bed and go back to sleep. And I would miss my classes and my appointments and the important things I needed to do that day or that week or whatever. But you know what? Some days I did it. In fact, most days I did it. Most days I found the strength. I found it in me to keep going. I found it in me to wash my face, brush my teeth, get dressed, and go out and face the world. And before I knew it, I could face the world that much more and that much more and that much more. And before I knew it, I found myself making progress. Before I knew it, I could look at myself and realize you're doing it. You are fighting the good fight. You are facing your challenges. You are facing your demons, and you're carrying on. In my life, I've done some incredible things. I've written books. I've traveled the world. I've done keynote lectures at major conferences. I've had extraordinary levels of business success running a 7-figure business. I've reached the very, very top of a professional field. But I don't want you looking at any of that as an example of my internal strength. The days where I proved to myself that I was capable and I had internal strength were the days where I had an unbelievable fear of addressing what was happening in my life. I had an unbelievable fear of facing life. I had an unbelievable fear of dealing with life as it was being dealt to me. And I faced it. And I figured out a way to carry on. And I figured out a way to keep going. And I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you for sure, if there's one thing I know, it's that I am not special. I am not a unicorn. I'm just like everyone else. And the beauty in that is if I can do it, you can do it. The beauty of that is if I could find my internal strength, then I know for sure you can find yours. And that's the message I want you carrying with you from listening to this podcast. So what I want you to do is I want you to look in your past and think of your most trying times, your most difficult moments. Think of all of the things that you've been through. And I want you to give yourself credit. And I want you to think about how you got through those things. I want you to think about what it is you have inside of you that allowed you to get through those difficult moments. I want you to think about how you carry on and how you do the things that you do. Listen, thanks so much for listening to me today. I'm Elliott Connie. I'm here to inspire you. And if I've done that, please share this podcast with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today, or share it on your social media platforms. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else where you listen to your podcast. And I will see you on Monday.